Isn't it fantastic when you buy a new game on release day, you support the developer, you support maybe a genre where you want to see more games coming out of a similar vein, you install it, you sit down to play it, and it's a total mess. The game itself, the content might be pretty good and well produced, but the actual game doesn't run properly. There's technical problems, there's stutters, it's totally garbage in that department. It's a bit like if you went to buy a car and you went into the dealership and you studied the parts and what's included and you thought, yeah, this all sounds pretty good. But you put in the key, you turn it, and the car does not drive. That is what modern gaming is starting to feel like on PC. There are so many dog shit PC ports that are coming out, and it is getting ridiculous. It feels like it is the norm now. There was probably a time where a PC port coming out and being rubbish, like an Arkham Knight, that was 8 years ago, by the way, time is flying, where that came out and it was a disaster. There were gaming articles, news about it, telling us how bad it was. That is now just normality. That happens with pretty much every release. In fact, it's special when a game releases on PC and it doesn't have too many problems. I was playing Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways, the DLC recently, performed pretty well on my PC, and I was thinking, that's actually pretty good. It's playing quite well. Not the case with Alan Wake 2. So Alan Wake 2 is coming out pretty soon, and the developers released a spreadsheet recently with the system requirements. And I'm not going to get too technical, but what I'm going to say is to run Alan Wake 2 on PC, you pretty much need a supercomputer, one of those ones that takes up the whole room that they talked about in the 1970s, the 1980s. You need something spectacular. You've got to spend $5,000 apparently just to run a game with some sort of functionality. Now, I've always seen with PC gaming, and this might be copium these days, but I always thought that PC gaming should be that if you buy a computer and the specs are on par with the current gen consoles, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, whatever, that you can have a decent time on PC. You can run it on medium settings. So I'm not saying it's going to be max graphics, but medium settings, decent performance. I feel like that should be realistic. And it is if the developers are willing to be competent enough and actually take the time to get it right. That is not happening. It really seems like developers are cutting corners and they are not optimizing their games. That's the key point. If you're not really a technical person with PC, you're not watching Digital Foundry videos. That's me, by the way. I don't get sort of too technical. I just want to spend the money, configure as I need to, and play. I don't think everyone needs to be a tech wizard to enjoy PC gaming. But I feel like you should be able to spend just a reasonable amount of money to have a good time. I hate the idea that you've got to have a 4000 series NVIDIA graphics card just to run the game at an acceptable level. And we hear all this talk about DLSS and ray tracing and everything. I don't think we even necessarily need that. If you buy a very high-end card and that's you want to enjoy it at the highest possible level. I do sometimes. I buy a new computer every sort of 3, 4, 5 years. And when I buy a brand new one, it's nice to enjoy that. But I'm not someone who's going out and buying an NVIDIA card the day it comes out. I buy a new PC when I feel it's time. But it now seems to be the case that they expect you to do that just to run a game properly, to be able to get through it without having massive problems. Alan Wake 2 seems to be the latest example. They've got no shame with it either. They release these system requirements like this is normal. They're trying to shift that narrative, and it's not just the Alan Wake developers. I like Remedy as a studio. I think they've released some good games, which is why I've been looking forward to some extent to Alan Wake 2. I think the first one, good survival horror title, good story, some Twin Peaks sort of vibes. It's been a decade or so since I've actually played it, so this sequel kind of came out of left field. I thought it would be nice to enjoy it. But seeing these system requirements, it just gives me PTSD from all of the bad releases we've had this year, like Jedi Survivor, total mess. It's still got mixed reviews on Steam. Starfield, I've said it before, Todd coming out and talking about how you need to upgrade your PC to enjoy it. Like that's normal, like they actually optimize that game and it's not their own incompetence. That's what I mean by changing the narrative. It seems like they do want to shift from saying, hey, we stuffed up, we've released a badly optimized game. They're not saying that anymore. They're now trying to say, no, we did what we're meant to. You, the customer, it's your fault because you didn't upgrade your PC. You see those NVIDIA 4090s? You should have bought one of those. That's the only way you can enjoy PC. If you can't do that, then you can't afford PC gaming apparently, and you should buy a console, which, by the way, they don't really optimize the games that well on console, but I think there's more normies, I guess, who don't really look at performance at all. I'm not someone who obsesses over frames performance, but you know when you're having performance issues, stuttering and things like that. But I think some people maybe on console just that they don't really tune into it all, and developers hope that that's the case. So not really the consumer's fault, it's again the developers just being lazy. So again, on Alan Wake 2, Remedy have released some really good games, like Max Payne 1 and 2. They're remaking those. I'm guessing in the next couple of years we'll hear more, and we will get those remakes. Hopefully they're like the Resident Evil remakes. They're a solid upgrade that feel like the original. They keep the same tone, but they maybe modernize some of the gameplay, that third-person shooting. Control, pretty good title. But I will say this, something that Remedy has had a problem with is, I guess, due to financial reasons. I get it that they're an independent studio. Is that the case anymore? I'm not sure exactly what's going on with their financials, but they released Quantum Break with Microsoft, and I don't think that did super well. The Xbox One, not many people were buying them, and it was before Microsoft really started to take PC seriously. So I think it may be on PC, but people just don't care anymore. It's pretty old, didn't get a great reception. There was Control, but then with Alan Wake 2, as we now know, it is an Epic exclusive. The Epic Store, it's gone through some different phases, I guess. There was the period when it came out where no one liked it. It was a joke, unless you were maybe the one of, you can count them on one hand, small numbers of people who actually played their games exclusively on PC, like Fortnite and so on, and you never touched Steam. Your only PC gaming was on the Epic Games launcher. Unless you're one of those people, you did not like Epic. You weren't interested in Epic, and you saw them as greedy, trying to force themselves into the market at the expense of the consumer experience. Metro Exodus came out around that original store release timeline, and people were not happy. I don't know the sales numbers on Metro Exodus, but it really tanked interest in that series on PC. People may say, consoles, they're selling really well, who cares about PC gamers? But there's been studios recently, publishers, who've actually said that most of their games are selling on PC. It is a big platform these days. So Metro Exodus, that studio had problems. So many studios had problems where people were not buying their games. And over the years, Epic have tried to give away games for free. They've changed up their licensing structures. I think what they really tried to do is Steam would focus on the consumers and give consumers a good experience at the expense of developers who had to buy and sort of pay high fees. However, Epic did the opposite. They said, who cares about the consumers? We're going to give the developers a good deal. We'll maybe take a 5% cut instead of Steam's 30%. Sounded good on paper, but when you piss off the people who are actually spending the money on games, you're going to have a problem. The developers are going to look greedy, even from their end. They may see it as a fair split. Steam are ripping them off, that's what they might say. But the consumers don't need to care about that. All they're doing is buying a game that they want to enjoy. They don't care about a sob story about the developers' hardships. It may be sad if they're struggling to make ends meet in their own lives, absolutely. However, for the consumer, they're not looking into that. They just want to buy a game and have a reasonably good time with it, justify their purchase. So Epic have sort of changed things up, and they have started to invest in some games. So rather than swoop in at the last minute and take on an exclusivity deal like they did with Metro, like they did with Borderlands 3, I believe, they have started to fund some games. And they have done that with, I think, some Square Enix titles, like the Kingdom's Heart collection. I believe they funded that and put it on PC, which is why no one on PC knows it exists, because it's hidden away on the Epic Store. There's people who probably buy it, but they don't know where it is. They don't even know that it is on the computer. But then they've done this with Alan Wake 2 as well, so I believe they funded development of their game, and they would say, the devs would probably say, Alan Wake 2 would not exist if it wasn't for Epic, and that is a fair reason for it to be an Epic exclusive. I get that argument, it does make sense, and I would prefer that Epic funded games rather than just stealing away exclusives. That just feels really, really bad. However, again, the consumer doesn't care about that. They do not care how Alan Wake 2 was made, they just care about buying it and having a good time. Alan Wake is not a must-play series. There was one game released a decade ago. A lot of people probably have not played it, they've heard of the series, willing to give it a chance, but they are not willing to go out of their way to play this game. If it's on Steam, sure, they'll probably buy it and check it out if it gets good reviews, but they're not going to download a storefront, go on there, put in their payment details again on yet another store and download the game there. They're just not going to do it. The devs might say that's not fair. How hard is it to download a storefront? It's one install, it doesn't cost you any money, just do it. But no, people are not going to do it because they don't want to be inconvenienced. There are a lot of games, there is a lot of competition. The survival horror genre, it's a great genre, but there's a fair bit out there. On the indie side of things, there's plenty of Resident Evil style games. You've got your Outlast, Visage, you've got Tormented Souls. I think they announced a sequel to that recently. There's a lot there. We don't need Alan Wake 2. If it's good, I would like to buy it, but I also do not want to be stuffed around by different storefronts. What it tells me as well is I don't care again how it was made that Epic funded it. When a game is locked away on the Epic Games Store, what it usually tells me is that the devs do not have confidence in their game, that the word of mouth, the Steam reviews, user reviews, they are not going to be enough to really help them to turn a profit. Not enough people are going to buy it. That's what they think. I just don't think that they have confidence when they lock it away on the Epic Store. They truly do not believe enough people are going to buy it and that it's going to be a smash hit, which is why they take money up front at the expense of the legs of the game, long-term sales. They might say that that's bullshit, it's not true, but I think it is the perception, and it is part of the reason that people are not going to rush over to Epic Games and buy it. They're simply going to play something else. They're not necessarily furious. I don't think people care that much anymore about a game being locked away on Epic. It's simply, it's a middling game, it's a middling series, we don't care enough. This isn't Baldur's Gate 3, this isn't Elden Ring, where you feel like you have to play this. This is just a game in a mid-tier series, a AA kind of series. Even though Alan Wake looks to have really nice graphics, it does look good. But coming back to the original discussion about the PC port, it may look good, Alan Wake 2 may look really nice, but I'm not willing to cut off an arm and a leg to buy a new PC to play it and then go onto some other storefront and play it as well. So right now, I'm going to be giving it a miss. I hope that somehow the devs can convince Epic or something can be done to get it onto Steam. I'm not a Steam fanboy, but I want to be able to consolidate my games. That's the main thing for me. The different publishers tell me, no, that's entitled, you've got to get it on our storefront because we don't want to be paying Steam a cut. Tough luck, because as a consumer, I want to have a nice experience. Sort out another solution. Find a way to be able to let people consolidate their games in one place, because people are not going to constantly make new accounts, sign into new storefronts, because there's too much competition. There's enough games out there to not have to do that. If you want to lock things away, people will just avoid your games. So PC ports, I hope they get better. Unfortunately, they probably won't until people stop supporting them. It's hard on PC because a game comes out, it gets hyped, people buy it, despite maybe some mixed Steam reviews, some mixed word of mouth, they keep buying them. And when every game's a bad PC port, suddenly the ones that aren't so bad, still pretty bad, but not as bad as something like a Jedi Survivor, it means that people will still buy them. So I'm not sure what the solution is. Voting with your wallet is really the only way, but hopefully the devs that do care about the PC experience, let's say Capcom with Resident Evil, they've been doing a pretty good job. Hopefully they get rewarded. So Alan Wake 2 is looking like a little bit of a miss at the moment for me on PC. Given those requirements, given the Epic storefront, I'm probably going to hold off. But I hope the survival horror genre does continue and we keep getting good games there, because the Separate Ways DLC, that reminded me that there's a lot of good out there. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.